No, Peach. No, this time I did not win. But let's go into the game and figure out a little bit about why that happened, things that could have been done better, all that kind of good stuff. So I'm going to get a little more in depth with this one just because it was a pretty close game. Both me and my opponent made a lot of mistakes. And then I'm also going to talk about army lists and things like that just a little bit. So strap in because this one will be a little bit long and hopefully my dog will stop dropping bones on the ground, which I'm sure you guys can hear. So sorry about that. So we'll go into the game. As came up during the battle report, I was forced to go second, which did give me my choice of table edge. So there wasn't really any good place to post up any of the HVTs. Like, even if you have one really great alcove that you can put the real designated target in, even if your opponent knows it's that one, and as long as it's hard for them to get to, that's a really big advantage, or at least that's the only advantage you can get going second. This table did not have any of that. If a couple things were reworked, it certainly could have, but you play on the table that you're on, so I'm fine with the table edge that I took, just because they're pretty even overall, but I felt like mine had a little bit better sight lines and as far as me getting line of fire to stuff and then denying line of fire to my opponent for stuff. So that's why I ended up taking it there. But, going first, definitely the way to go, especially on this table. So, and as always, I'm just going to be jumping around a little bit here and talking about things as they pop into my mind. So, sorry if the pictures jump around a little bit. Okay, so my deployment I was overall okay with. I did what I kind of planned to do in unmasking, which is I need to put most of my army on one flank, and then I want to put the Kamel Triad on the other flank. The reason for that is because I can hide the Kamel Triad. It's very unlikely that my opponent's going to go after them very hard, especially with how many things you have to do on the first turn in unmasking, and you have some of your orders stripped because you're going first most likely, or you're playing limited insertion, in which case you don't have that many orders to begin with. So they're probably going to live, and then they can come out, use the McCall's smoke to stay pretty safe, and then they can pick up the far console. After that happens, I don't care what really happens to them. They can just go back into hiding, keep some orders around, or they can be arrow pieces. Doesn't really matter. So I did that, and then I managed to put most of my stuff on the left with the remainder in the middle. So all of that is generally correct. That's kind of my my general deployment plan, and then my deployment plan for this mission when I can do so. A couple of things that I did not do very well were putting this Chaxa out here. So ideally, he was going to be able to sweep up the flank, and I was excited for him in this game because I could see where the flash remote was, where what I almost certainly knew was a 0 was, where the Morlocks were, stuff like that. So if he stays around, then the Rasail can move around, and they can tag team stuff, and they can just make really strong attrition plays. So all I really needed to do was take this guy and put him here prone, because they're 6'4", they're very fast. So I didn't need to be so eager to get him involved in the action. And then just with the weird line of sights that are in here, it's very unlikely that someone's going to come around here to get into flamer range. So any shots that happen against me are going to be very unfavored. Similar thing with the Rasail, where I had her over here. She's not a good arrow piece unless you put her in suppressive fire. So I should have, again, just had her back here a little bit, and having her up here ended up costing me a wound on her. Not a big deal in the game, the way it played out, but if you think back to the battle report, remember that both my Keltar specialists died, so I'm very much in danger of going into loss of lieutenant because my Rasail is known to be the lieutenant. I've used the lieutenant order as I always do, and she is kind of out in the middle of nowhere. She isn't suppressive near a barrier, but it's very possible that she can get killed. So even losing a wound on her like that was kind of a problem. So other than that, everything in this picture is fine. Everything in this picture is pretty much fine. I had that sniper set up exactly where I wanted to. The hope was that I could steal some orders away from Group 1 by one of the moderator snipers trying to get into a sniper off. I would certainly be not favored on there. I would be 2 dice on 12s because Triad cover range, and they would be 3 dice on 13s because of big team cover range. So I'm definitely not advantaged there, but it's dicey enough that something weird could happen. And then I have a Symbiont mate and multiple wounds, although against double action, multiple wounds are not as attractive. That's something I should have thought about before. So I do think that was an okay placement, but not maybe a super ideal one. Again, everything else in this picture where it is fine, except for the stuff I've already talked about. So The Chaxas, I think, were placed a little too conservatively. I probably could have had them up some more, not only because, let's say I hypothetically went first, I could have done some coordinated sensor sweeps and then, gotten all those zeros out of there, and then the game pretty much is over on turn one if that happened. But that's an alternate reality. But I was deploying them to kind of cover my back against like arrow pieces or not arrow pieces. I'm sorry, airborne deployment pieces. So some of them are unnecessary. Like I have one over here. If someone wants to land over here and then take like the 2 orders to walk out and start having some fights, I'm okay with that because like I have this Kamel. So if you come this way, you're getting like a pistol, another pistol, a combi, and then that's maybe a Rasail shot. Like you're getting a lot of things. And then if you come this way, you're still getting the Kamel. You're getting another Kamel over here, probably still the Rasail. So I need to think about how realistic it is to deploy an airborne trooper in certain places, especially depending on what their options are. Like if it's a 2 wound one, like you're playing combined or something, then it gets a lot scarier. But if it's just a normal 1 wound guy, they're probably not going to cause that much havoc. And Bakunin doesn't have any particularly great drop troops anyways. So I probably should have had these 2 back Chaxa up forward more. Minor thing, especially the way the game played out, but is certainly something I need to bear in mind. This McCall, I didn't love his placement, and I'd like it even less in hindsight because I wanted him forward so that he can do his smoke stuff if I need to, obviously, but he can be shot even while prone from like this rooftop. So if Kusanagi had wanted to, she could have just hopped up there, got into a face-to-face roll with him, which is very favored for her. Even if I do manage to win it, she's going to be an ARO, so if I activate any of the team members, which I almost certainly will, she can try to kill the McCall again. So I probably just should have had him back with the Kamel in safety here, and that would have been the way to go. I also should have swapped this Kamel with actually we can go to the next photo, I guess. So yeah, the FO Kamel should have been here, and then the other one should have been here. The reason for that is I don't super care about arrow in this console. I'm more just trying to put up like a deterrent to that Morlock that was over there, and more importantly, keeping the Triad in that position so that I can move up and use the Specialist to push the button, as I talked about. So keeping her safe was the most paramount thing. In the moment, I was kind of enchanted with using her Flash Pulse, but looking at the table now, it's not like her Flash Pulse is going to get anything done. The only thing that's likely to run into her line of fire is a Morlock, which doesn't really care if it gets Flash Pulsed all that much. The Zero is unlikely to try to take a fight with her after it pushes the console and all that kind of stuff, and even if it does, I'm probably going to be using... no, I probably would use the Flash Pulse because of the extra 2 ballistic skill from the willpower. So that might have been what I was thinking of, but definitely not something I should have done in hindsight there. These are the HVT placements. I think these are okay. Again, remember I had so few options to deal with or to work with. This one might have been better off here just because it's a little harder to see, but the team can just cross the bridge here and then see her. So it's like you can either cross the bridge and see it, or you can climb up the ladder and see down. I mean, I didn't really have that many good places to really put them. So I was just kind of a little bit between a rock and a hard place there. I do like the one on the right. I think that's a decent position. If it would have been bad if that was the actual target, but it wasn't. So that one, I guess, maybe adds some element of doubt or something like that. And then it really can only be killed by Kusanagi and friends. It's very hard for anybody else to see that HVT. Deployment on my opponent's part, mostly okay in this picture. This guy is too far forward for no reason. He should be tucked back here. He's a moderator with a combi rifle. He's pretty much as terrible as it gets in the game. As far as a gunfighter goes, there's really no reason for him to be exposed. The other one up here was okay just because he has a pitcher, and that gives him a couple lanes to go down with that. But I probably would have moved that guy over to here or over to here prone, and then just shifted maybe some of these models just a little bit, or had someone else be the team lead, which is also fine. So just some small things there. The Morlocks are by and large okay. They're going to run out and get shot a lot of the time, so there's not much you can do about that. This was a really good HVT placement just because I do have to come up a little bit to see it. And then that's going to put me in like plus range from the pistol if you decide to do that. So some small things. This one over here was just a take what you can get one. So that one wasn't particularly well placed or anything like that, but not really my opponent's fault that's what happened. Good place for the War Core, good place for both the Flash Rems. I do not super love where Kusanagi and her fire team are, just because it feels like they're kind of out on their own. And while they look tough when you look at their profile, they're never going to stand up to anything in the active turn, even Kusanagi, especially not against me, because I have both a sniper rifle, she is not shock immune, I believe, and then I have a viral combi, so there's plenty of things to completely murder her with. She does have ODD, so the Rasail is probably not going to be the guy to do that, but the Gaurel Sniper or the Gaurel Spitfire can eat her for breakfast if they want to. So I think maybe pulling them a little bit more to the right to be with the army or something like that would have been a little bit more beneficial, because they never really got anything out of the position they were in. It's not like they were in a crazy good ARO position or anything like that, unless you go up on top of the building or something, which didn't happen until late game. And then if that had happened, she almost certainly gets killed, unless I have another unlucky bout of face-to-face rolls with my MSV2 guys. So minor nitpick there, but maybe it could have been just a little bit better. Obviously, all the zeros placed as they need to be for the mission, so that's all good. And then I didn't really see the point in putting this Morlock over here. Nobody can take advantage of the smoke in the list, so it's not like we're trying to set up any MSV2 plays over here or anything like that. And then it's not like he was going to go on a killing rampage through my Camille Triad just because of how far away he was and all that kind of stuff. So probably would have put him on the right-hand side or in the middle, just to kind of keep him, again, with the army and not have things so spread out for no reason. The only thing I can really think of as far as him being over there is in case, one of the HVTs over here is the real one, but you have the Harris team for that, so they're just way better at it. Instead of just giving me, a dodge against a chain rifle, they can actually put meaningful shots into me with odds. I like to play with Brando Castro, as I said in the battle report. We talked about that. I think that was the right way to go. So him being up there was fine. There was no way I could ever get to him. I don't have anything with Specfire in the list, and even if I did, he has a pretty decent physique and all that good stuff. So he would be dodging relatively safely. If I had Specfire, I don't think that would have been the place to put him, just because it's not beyond me to spend 10 orders just trying to kill him with Specfire, because if you can kill your opponent's data tracker in this mission, it's very difficult to lose. If you can kill them before they've killed your designated target, I should say. So if you can do that, it's very difficult to lose, and it's worth dedicating an entire turn to play for the mission. But that was not the case with my list, and I guess my opponent knew that, but I don't remember him asking if I had any Specfire or anything. In general, Toha does not have very much of that. I was happy with my placement of the Liberto. I think he could have gone a little bit more this way, just to make it so that both of the chain cult shots are very, in range. I don't really have to think about it or anything like that. But I was fine with his placement. Generally, I think that plan is going to work out where either people are going to get into a firefight with him, in which case it depends on what they are, but it's reasonably likely that he'll die just because he has like no armor and stuff like that. He does have dogged, but if you just do 2 wounds to him, he will die from that. So most of these infiltrating guys either have boarding shotguns or combi rifles. So they're both equally bad, but if one stops to shoot me and I can kill him, that's fine, because that makes it a lot harder to activate that console. You have to kind of sheepishly walk the other camo model over there, maybe recamo him, something like that. In which case I did have the mine in place for. So like if this guy decided to go over here to get this console, he's gonna have to contend with that mine. So that's okay. Generally okay with the mine placement as well. It just so happened to be that my opponent had a war core right there, so that should have caused me to place it somewhere else. Not really super sure where else I should have put it. Maybe like here or something, just so that if the zero ever comes this way, it'll trigger on him, and then maybe the war core would have to use like 2 moves to get it to trigger on it, but I'm not 100% sure about that. So bad mine placement by me, but I'm okay with the Liberto placement. So yeah, we come over here. So this was a fine interaction. I stand by the choice to combi rifle because flash pulsing the Morlock doesn't really do anything, and as I said, I don't super care about the smoke. The consideration would be if I had flash pulsed, I'm on 2 dice 16s versus 1 dice 10s, as it turned out to be. Normally it would be 1 dice 16, I believe. I think Morlocks are physical 13. So the smoke doesn't matter because of the Gaurel, but the gal rail can be blocked with white noise, which is very likely. So if I had prevented the smoke from going down by using the flash pulse, then the Liberto could have seen the 0 on that console. Again, very unlikely to, I can't stop him from using the console, but it could have given me some more arrow opportunities or something like that. So it is close. If I were to play this over again, I think the combi is still okay if the smoke is far enough away. If the smoke is within 8, then I think the flash pulse was the play. But looking at it, I felt I'm pretty decent at looking at 8 inches, which you can clip that if you want for some kind of making fun of me video. But if it was within 8 inches for the smoke grenade, then I think the flash pulse would have been the play. Otherwise, I think the combi rifle is the play to try to not only prevent the smoke from going down, but also get a kill as well. Nothing really here. Nothing really here other than that this gal rail. I can't 100% remember what happened in this. I don't remember if I got to shoot this or not. I don't think I did, but I could have just been out a little bit more and still gotten cover. Or I could have placed the gal rail like here, which would have probably been a much better position because then I can catch stuff coming both ways. And I think that just would have been the better way to go. And then I'm still peeking out so I can still see down here and all that kind of good stuff. So just a small misplace by the gal rail probably let that McCall live, which again in the game not that big of a deal as far as the actual story of the game, but me missing a kill on my reactive turn is always definitely a bummer. So we have the white noise stuff down here, which is fine. That was going to happen regardless. So the gal rail was never going to be able to arrow the console, which is something I need to remember moving forward. I need to ask my opponent what kind of hacking devices they have. If they can do white noise, if they can, then I need to make sure that the gal rail is paired up with somebody who does not have MSV, so that I can always at least, if the 0 wants to get into a face-to-face roll, hey, let's do it. If the 0 wants to go for the console, then I can still kill it, all that kind of good stuff. So that's just something I need to bear in mind with the army moving forward. So yeah, over here we got the pitcher. So I did manage to get a lot of orders out of my opponent by doing these white noises. I think he went a little too hard on them sometimes. But the fact that he has to spend orders to activate the consoles as well as spend orders to do so safely with either smoke or white noise is really taking up his entire turn, which was not so bad for me because remember my entire game plan going second is to play for attrition. So if my opponent is not trying to shoot me that much, that means I'm going to have all my orders on my turn, all my models, and I can go ahead and do what I want to do. Yep, so we just had the Liberto face off here where we do wound to each other. That's all. I'm fine with that trade. Yeah, so this is where the Rasail takes a wound, does eat up an order from the moderators, but not worth trading an order for a Rasail wound in my opinion in this mission or in this game state. So I addressed that during deployment. Yep, here's where I make the disastrous mistake with the Kamel. So like I said, taking the fight with the Morlock is fine. I'm burst 4 in my active turn. Being on 8s is okay. He can smoke dodge on a pretty good number, but generally 4 dice is probably going to beat 1 unless he rolls really, really high or something. So it is dicey, but it's just 1 order, and if I fail, I probably won't do it again. So I was okay with that fight. But then obviously make the huge mistake of getting her killed in this picture. So could have easily just moved the gal rail, killed this guy as I did, and then pretty much owned the right-hand side. Like I said, Kusanagi and friends are not booking it all the way over there to deal with those guys. And at this point, there wasn't actually anything in ARO except for the remote. So what I could have done is the hopeful thing would have been to move the Krail over, get his smoke down for the gal rail to go on his killing spree, and then use the remaining group 2 orders to get this console activated and all that kind of good stuff. But that didn't work out because obviously she died, and then the Krail, as he is wont to do, refused to roll 14 or less on a dice. So I had to blow a bunch of orders on that. But even if that happens, I can just keep them, I can keep them pretty safe. They're in a pretty safe position except for the McCall. So just not getting her killed probably would have won me the game right there, because then I activate all 3 consoles, no problem. All I have to deal with is this flash remote, which I don't even have to. If I don't want to, I could go prone and crawl or something like that. There's a whole bunch of ways I could use the McCall smoke, all that good stuff. And then I can, figure out which one is the real designated target, kill it with something, if not the Corral, and that would be, enough points to be pretty good on the mission for, especially that early. So let's go back here. Yep, so this is the fight I talked about where the Traxa should not have been forward, which eventually got him killed by the Zero. Did take him 2 orders, but still could have used that Traxa for quite a bit more than he was actually used for, which is disappointing, so I just need to keep him a little bit safer. A consistent theme throughout my games is whenever I deploy, to be able to see anything, like arrow in any way, shape, or form, I always regret it. Toha is... I stand by this. If you play Toha, let me know your thoughts, but I do not think Toha should almost ever arrow. They are extremely bad at it compared to other factions. There's a lot of reasons for that. One is we have not very good ballistic skill, even on our more elite gunfighters. Like a Gaurail is very elite priced, but he only has ballistic skill 12. We don't have good access to suppressive fire because of triads. Triads, of course, do give you burst 2, but... they're easily broken, so that can go away very, very quickly. And then most of our triad filler guys are not very tough. So like McCalls only have 1 wound, no real armor. Kamales, line troopers, they suck. Kael'Tar's basically a line trooper, all that kind of stuff. So that's something I need to work on in this mission a little bit more, is if you go second, it does feel like you have to ARO. But I think the strategy is to either... arrow all the approaches to the designated target if you can safely, or arrow a bunch of approaches to a decoy to make your opponent think that that's the real one, and then you're kind of pulling them in a whole bunch of different directions. Really, the only goal when you're going second and unmasking is to not take so many losses on the mission that you can then play for attrition very well for the first turn and a half, something like that, and then kind of went out from there. But I did not play exactly to that strategy, which is something that I kind of thought about after the game was over. So yep, Traxa dies, all that fun stuff. Warcore triggers the mine. So that's a little unlucky for me that he lives, because I think he dodges it on an 8. So that's a 40% chance to dodge, and then I think he has a 35% chance to pass arm. So not super likely that he dies. Wasn't a big deal that he didn't, but would have been nice. Just kind of an example of a minor luck thing not going my way. Already talked about that. Yep. So now we go on this killing spree. This was a really... So this was I think the part that both was winning me the game and ultimately lost me the game, in conjunction with some other things. So I'm going to talk about this quite a bit. So I killed a whole bunch of models here. I think I ended up killing 1 Morlock, 1 Warcore, 1 Moderator Sniper, and then 1 Zero. Yeah, I killed the Zero on the far right hand side. So that's a pretty good haul. And then I also killed the moderator with the pitchers. So that's like a 5 model haul right there, but it should have been more. And the fact that it wasn't more made the game a lot harder on me. So you have to like think about how advantaged I am in these firefights. So let's look at the one with the Zero and the Gaurail. So I'm in smoke. I'm not in cover, but I'm in smoke. And then we're both going to be at good range if he decides to shoot. So that would be 1 shot on 8s if you're a Zero, versus my 5 shots on 12s because I'm in good range, because he has cover. I don't care about his mimetism because goggles. So I'm hugely advantaged there. So of course it decides to dodge, where I'm still hugely advantaged because it's 1 dice on an 11 versus still 5 dice on 12s. So, get out of here. I rolled extremely bad and only got 1 hit. Normally, I would average probably at least 2. And then the Zero only has 3 armor because of the cover, so it needs 12s to pass the Spitfire. So if it's 2 hits, the thing almost certainly dies. Even with 1 hit, it has like a 60% chance to die, which is good. But the fact that I rolled really bad, only getting 1 hit, and then it eventually was able to pass the arm, was very unlucky, because that keeps a Zero around, which is not the most serious model, but it is a mimetism combi rifle guy, so he can do some work. And then I have to account for him like with positioning and stuff like that, so that was certainly a bummer there. the one that was a major bummer was not killing both of the snipers. So as I talked about, the fire team is broken because I killed the pitcher guy, and he was the team lead, which he should not have been. That should have been changed around, which was a mistake from my opponent. So I killed him, broke the teams. Now the moderators are completely crap. They're going to be 1 dice on 10s because of range and cover versus my 5 dice on 12s because of range and cover. So both of them should get completely worked. I don't even remember what I don't know what armor a moderator has. I assume it's 1 or 0. Might be 2, but it's probably 1. So the odds of it living are, again, very low. And if I manage to kill those snipers, that trickles down into me not losing the Kael'tars and all that kind of good stuff. So you can see how me not getting the results out of these firefights that I should most of the time kind of swung the game against me. And it's not like it was just one, it was at least a couple against targets I was overwhelmingly advantaged on. So that's just, me playing the odds and doing the right things, but not coming out with, the dice that I needed to, which did have a very large impact on the game, unfortunately. So there's the 0 dead. That's all fine. Here's me moving around, doing cool stuff like I was talking about. Yeah, so this is the biggest mistake in the game. The thing that decided the game the most was the Galrail not killing those models like I talked about to really own the center and shut down most of the ARO options as well as a bunch of orders. But me staying the Kael'tars up was very short-sighted. So I was very focused on keeping Brando out. I thought he would make like a run to try to at least get in like 0 range for the boarding shotgun or something like that. But that didn't end up happening. And my opponent wisely took the models that I gave him for free in the Kael'tars, which made the game much harder because now I'm down 2 orders. I'm down some pretty good ARO pieces. I'm down 2 specialists that are whip 14, which was a very big deal because I only had 1 specialist at the end of the game, if you think back to the battle report. And then also losing the chain of command combined with having my Rasail out there as a suppressive fire piece, which she's very good at, and that's how I should be using her. Makes it just a lot more risky because I don't have the chain of command. So that is probably the biggest mistake that I made in the entire game, and the one that if I had changed it almost certainly leads to like a more direct victory. Also because, remember like my doctor was over here. Well, this guy's like over here. So all he has to do is climb down this building. He can start booking it over to the console, which is probably going to save me like an order, probably just 1 order, but it would be very helpful. So that's really where I think the game swung hard against me. A combination of me making a bad decision with popping them up, and then the combination of me getting unlucky on so many face-to-face rolls where I wasn't able to strip orders and get rid of models and stuff. Sorry, my dog is getting to the trash, so I have to berate him under the table. Hey, knock it off, you. All right, so yeah, that doesn't mean anything. This is where my opponent tries to kind of throw the game back to me. So this Morlock runs out, no reason. Probably should have canceled the order. It's very unlikely he's going to do anything, because like I said, either he smoke dodges, which is fine, then he's just there and he'll probably get killed in the next turn by something. Probably the sniper or something like that, or the Rasail, or he tries to chain rifle the Galrail, but the Galrail has decent odds of dodging that, and it's not going to kill him even if he doesn't, even if he takes the wound, and then the Rasail has pretty good chance at killing the Morlock, so kind of a throwaway model there. And then we use a whole bunch of orders to put up these white noises. I think it was 3 in total. I think one of them failed. And then we use orders to move the 0 around and try to get this Galrail dead. So I just don't like this play that much because the combi rifle doesn't have that great of odds of killing the Galrail anyways. Most likely outcome is that, I'm probably going to take a hit and then guts away or something like that. So if you're trying to kill him, that's not really the move to go. And then even though the Rasail is not on very good dice because she's -6 for cover and mimetism, I do have 3 dice, and any hit is almost guaranteed death on that 0 because they have 0 BTS and it's 2 BTS saves per. So I really didn't like that play that much either. Probably would have preferred to lay some mines. I think the Fort Observer ones still have mines, re-camo and be annoying that way, something like that, just to be like a little bit better. And then it's not like getting rid of the Gaurel gives Brando Castro like an open invite to the middle of the table or anything like that. I still have a ton of models that can shoot him as soon as he shows his face. So I just really think this is a pointless play that ended up using like 4 orders or something like that, which is quite a few when your opponent is down on attrition. So yep, 0 dies. Like this is an example of me winning a lucky dice roll, but as I said during the battle report, my lucky dice rolls were always on things that were unimportant. So it's like, hey, I get to keep this McCall around, even though he's impetuous and is running down at Kusanagi. But who cares? Because I don't really need this McCall for anything. He's not important. So, using some luck there when I would have used it on almost any other dice roll is a bit unfortunate for me there. So we're going through. Yep. So here I make another mistake. I should not have done all these coordinated orders. I had plenty of stuff to stop Brando Castro from doing what he needed to do just with like the models I already had. So like just to count them off, I have the Rasail and Suppressive Fire. I have the Gaurel Sniper. I have the Corral at the bottom of the screen who can do something. You can just try to throw some shots that way or something like that. Could have easily moved this checks up just a little bit back here, just with her own orders or whatever, which would have probably been fine. So that's another one. I have the Gaurel McCall combo. I have the Doctor. So I have a lot of things that are ready to shoot Brando Castro in the face if he were to move out, and I didn't really need any more. Some of these can be shut down by certain things, like obviously White Noise can shut down both of the Gaurels, but those are going to take orders and stuff like that. So it's not as big of a worry. The main problem was that I used a lot of command tokens when having those on turn 3 to maybe move some combat groups around more intelligently, or to use coordinate orders on that turn would have been very much appreciated. So yep, nothing's really going on here. I killed this remote. That's fine. Yeah, overall, this checks the push was just very unnecessary. It didn't really net me anything other than that one kill on that Flash Pulse remote. As I said during the battle report, I was worried that it had its own order, and that might be it. I don't think anything else was alive in its combat group, but it could have just 6-4 moved around with the repeater and gotten into it in an annoying place for all those white noises and stuff like that. So I was a little bit worried about that, but in hindsight, not really something I should have been thinking about so much. Probably not something that was even on my opponent's radar, since he had a guy with a pitcher still alive. And then he had one repeater down in the middle, or one pitcher down in the middle, and all that kind of stuff. So it's like he has enough coverage to do what he wants to do already. So that was just kind of me thinking that I was doing something where I'm actually not really getting much done. So yep, we have Kusanagi's shooting spree, which removes a bunch of people. Very good. That's all fine because it used a whole bunch of orders, which is all I wanted because I don't really care if any of these models live. The only model that matters is the data tracker and the specialist that I have left alive, both of which were fine. Yeah, and then so this is obviously where the designated target gets killed. Very unlucky for me. That was certainly in my favor. I think it's like 2/3 odds that it goes my way, where I either make the dodge or we just bounce or miss or something like that. So very disappointed on that one, but I guess kind of caps the game in a suiting way, where the dice were against me in the important moments, independent of me also making mistakes on top of that. So if Brando Castro had failed, he still is very, very likely to die from all the arrows that I put there. Almost a 100% chance, unless the dice are complete fire on those arm rolls and stuff like that. And then that's pretty much the game, because while Kusanagi can probably kill the designated target, that's only going to be 2 points instead of 5. And that just makes things a lot easier on me. The way the game was scored, obviously I still would have lost 4-2. No, it would have been a 3-3 tie. So yeah, that would have changed things quite a bit, obviously. And then just a mistake to end the game on my part, where I moved the Krail into Group 1. So if I'm going to go back and count the orders, I had 3 Chaxas left in Group 1, so that's 3 orders. I have the Doctor, that's 4 orders. I have a McCall, that's 5 orders. I have a Sniper, that's 6 orders. Yeah, so I have 6 orders in Group 1. And then in Group 2, I have the Quarry Sentinel, the Krail, the regular Kamel, so that's 3 orders, and the Rasail, so that's 4 orders. So I should have just left the combat groups as they were, or not used the command tokens to do the coordinated order with the Chaxas, because then I could have moved the Corrail into combat group 1, used him to flank around and try to take this boarding shotgun fight, which was very dicey. This is probably the one dicey interaction that went my way. And that way, could have done that while I was moving the Doctor forward to head over to the console eventually. But I think the actual good play is just leaving everything as they were, or as it was, because then I can, smoke up with the McCall and all that kind of good stuff in group 1. I have plenty of orders to move the Doctor around. So I probably need, I said I probably need 3 orders to get rid of the console out of 6. So that leaves me, let's see, I don't have any smoke bots left or anything like that. So yeah, I mean, it's still hard just because I don't have anything to kill Kusanagi or try to force her to go prone or anything like that other than the sniper. But he's not a triad anymore, so he's not super, super sexy odds. But I could have at least taken a shot at it because the sniper will one-shot Kusanagi. I think I could have corralled it so that she would be 2 shots on 11s for bad range and cover, whereas I would have been 2 shots on 12s for good range and cover. So super, super dicey, but I could have at least tried it. And that's generally worth doing. But at this point, the mistakes and the bad luck were compounding so much that no matter what I did, it was going to be a really hard road, because I would have had to probably kill Kusanagi, and then use the Corrail to kill the boarding shotgun guy, or kept the McCall alive from being killed by the moderator with a combi rifle in his impetuous move so that I could smoke more, that kind of thing. So that would have been good. It would have been very helpful if I had made my triad leader the correct model, which was not the Gaurail, because if that duo had stayed around, then I don't have to use the impetuous move, which means the McCall doesn't die, and I can sacrifice the McCall to eclipse up the middle while still moving with the Kumatail a little bit, and then that probably works. So yeah, that was another mistake that kind of put the final nail in the coffin there, which is having my triad leader as the wrong model, which is something I'm usually good about, but just messed it up this time. So that's pretty much the game. I didn't really talk about a lot of my opponent's mistakes. Most of them were like fight oriented. He took a lot of dicey fights, particularly with like the snipers against the Kael'tars was kind of dicey. Threw away a lot of orders using the white noise, where sometimes I didn't feel like he absolutely had to do that. And then, yeah, just some just some small miscellaneous things. Not like he played a particularly bad game or anything like that. I just think that I had a much better game plan for the mission and did a better job of executing it. It was just that within that plan, I made too many small mistakes that added up to a loss, as well as had some unfortunate dice interactions. Very hard to recover from a game where you have bad dice luck and you're also making mistakes on top of that, and that's what I did. So walking away with a 6-3 victory kind of tells me that I definitely had all the tools and things like that to make this an easy win, but just didn't execute well enough. So I'm going to talk a little bit about army lists. Just put up this screen. So if you watched the Spiral Core review that I put up, my list will be changing when those models are legal, because the new light smoke grenade launcher model is significantly better than a Corrail Preceptor. There's some things that the Corrail does that are cool, like he brings the Serta Beast. He's fast, so he's a good data tracker in some missions and stuff like that. But ultimately, I've lost huge amounts of orders just not because he cannot roll a 14 or less on 1 dice, and that's really, really frustrating, especially because he's in the same combat group as like the Rasail, so that's taking away offense. He's in the same combat group as the Kamail Triad, so that's taking away mission work, stuff like that. So having a model that can go in a triad with a light smoke grenade launcher and use ballistic skill 12, 2 dice instead of physique 11, 1 dice is a significant upgrade on top of the other things that model brings, which are many, because that model is fucking broken. I can't wait to play it. It's gonna be so awesome. The other things are, I think and I've already made these changes, but I do not like the Galrail Sniper. I do not think sniper rifles are good guns in general, unless you are either in a 5-man fire team or you are one of the extremely good snipers. Because like a 5-man fire team, very difficult to dislodge a sniper when they have 2 shots in ARO and +3 ballistic skill and 6th sense level 2. All those things make them very intimidating. Toha cannot do that, obviously. We only get triads. And then I just like the Spitfire a lot better than the sniper rifle. Some of that is the Spitfire is my favorite range band in the game. I think it's the best one by a significant margin. So that playing with that is very easy and fun. And then when you compare the 2 guns, I will trade shock and 1 damage for 2 extra shots every day of the week, and it's not close. The only reason the Galrail was really in that list is because I needed something, or the Galrail Sniper, is because I needed something to take really, really far away fights with. So like if I am like, if the screen is a table and my Galrail Spitfire is here and the thing he needs to fight is here, obviously I'm gonna have to move a whole bunch to get within like working range and get cover and all that kind of stuff. So that's why the sniper rifle is in there, is to kind of shore that up. But just the fact that Galrail is not particularly great gunfighters unless they're using smoke tricks, combined with the fact that having 2 MSV2 models is my 2 main heavy hitters, really opens me up to white noise. Those are both considerations. So I think I'm going to drop him and go back to a Sukiel HMG. The reason for that is because I've been looking for something that can take a fire team head on. It's really easy to break a fire team for me if my opponent misplaces models, like if they'll leave a guy with a shorter range gun out, like my opponent did in this game with the combi rifle pitcher moderator. If I can pick on somebody like that to get rid of the +3 ballistic skill, then you can usually get 1 more guy in a fight, especially with Toha because you have bad luck protection. And then the fire team falls apart. But that first guy is very difficult to get if your opponent deploys the fire team correctly and they only have like the really good fighters front and center. So what the Sukiel HMG does is he fights at the same range band as like those other big guns, so he'll always be in +3 range pretty much. And then the fact that he has mimetism negates the +3 fire team bonus, unless they have MSV, of course, which some of them do, but it's not super common. So, and then even if I ran the odds on, even if they do ignore the mimetism, I'm still advantaged just because of the burst advantage with the Sukiel's natural ballistic skill of 13 helping out quite a bit there. So we're going to go back to that. I think that'll be a really strong addition to the list. And then also, as I mentioned, when Spiral Core comes out and I get access to placing Mirror Ball down, which is white noise, then I can do the same things that was happening to me in this game where I can place Mirror Ball down. Oh, you're Varuna, you're leading with your ballistic skill 13 MSV2 sniper. Whoops, take 5 HMG shots to the face. I guess you can try and dodge. So that's really going to kick the list up a notch and remove a major weakness. Also, just having an HMG is okay. I'm not the biggest fan of them. I think Spitfires are better. But that extra point of damage can come in handy against some tags or some other heavier targets. And then the Sukiel is just such a great gunfighter that she was definitely missed as far as being able to like win fights on rolls and stuff like that. So I'm looking forward to that. Made some other miscellaneous changes for the time being, but the list will really come into its own when Spiral Corp comes out. And maybe there's some other cool things I can get access to, but having much more reliable regular smoke, as well as having access to white noise and having access to jammers, way better than jammers actually, all from the same model that can go in a triad, is going to be just completely awesome. So I'm very excited about that. As far as my opponent's list goes, and this is kind of the last comment that I'll say, I don't think his list is very good. He's a much more experienced player than me, but I see this a lot from different army compositions where there's not really anything going on in the army. Like, so for this one, you have all the zeros, which are meant to probably play into like acquisition and those kind of missions. So they're sort of throwaway. You're going to like use them to activate consoles and stuff like that, but you're not expecting them to do any actual like fighting. And they're very easy to kill. So they're usually not going to make it past turn 2. The moderator link is terrible. Generally, I like line trooper 5-man teams because you're taking like guys who have subpar stats but are very cheap and then bumping them up to like an average gunfighter profile. The problem is that most line troopers have ballistic skill 11 and they have ballistic skill 10, which is actually quite a big deal. And then they don't really bring anything else to the table. Like they don't have any like cool tricks. That link doesn't really have any awesome guns in it besides the 2 snipers, which are just very obvious RRO pieces. So I don't really like dedicating all those points and stuff like that, even though it's not a ton of points, to, you know, something that's easily played around in the active turn by people that have well-constructed army lists, and you're relying on those pretty heavily for like ARO and stuff. I do like the Kusanagi link. Okay, she's very good. The other 2 models I'm not as sold on. They're incredibly expensive for the stuff that you get from them. They are like 3 arm, 3 BTS, but they're only 1 wound. They're not like, they are BS-13s. So they're reasonable fighters, but in a Harris, you're not taking full advantage of that. The ODD is really what sets them apart. Obviously, I can play around that a lot more easily than some armies can. But it just feels like you can just take Kusanagi by herself and she'll be almost as good. Like, obviously, you kind of miss the extra burst, but she has such good ballistic skill and is so solid as a model with ODD, effective 2 wounds but not shock immune, that kind of thing, that I think she's better as like a Rambo model than being with these other 2 models that are very expensive and not doing too much. The rest of it's all fine. Morlocks are good. Flash remotes are good. All that kind of stuff. But there was just nothing that I was ever afraid of in terms of fighting in the list. And that's something I think is a sign of a weaker army list, is like you should have a model that... my dog's going to freak out. You should have a model that kind of... asks a lot of questions on how your opponent's going to deal with it. And you can almost say Kusanagi is that list. Or that model. I would agree with that if she was on her own and those extra points were allocated elsewhere, to things that are maybe more beneficial to the army in general or something like that. But she's also not quite on that same tier. She is offensively, but she is very easy to kill from enough things that it's very likely her opponent will have one of them at least. So that's where she falls apart a little bit for me in terms of being the only threat in a list. So those are just kind of my general thoughts. I don't know Bakunin super well, so I think they have taskmasters and stuff like that. So seeing something like that in there might have made me a little bit happier. And then you do have Brando Castro on the list. He is another kind of taking care of business model, but I think of him more as like a heat-seeking missile, where you have one thing that he really wants to kill, and he's going to trade himself to do that. A lot like, impersonation models and things like that. He can obviously do a whole bunch of work, but I think that relies more on your opponent deploying poorly and things like that, which are not things you should always count on. So those are just my general thoughts. Just kind of sum up, disappointing loss, but definitely learned a lot about the mission. Went back and wrote some thoughts down that I have Word documents for each mission that I play a lot, like the more competitive missions. So I got some good intel out of that, and we'll definitely be playing Unmasking more over the next month as I prepare for Rumble some more. That's probably the one that I'm least solid on. Supplies I just don't feel as solid because the mission is dog shit. Horrible mission that should not ever be used for competitive play. I don't think I've met anybody that disagrees with that in my local meta or online yet. So I'm solid on the fact that if I go second I probably lose, and there's not really much I can do about that. So it is what it is. And then Acquisition is just different because I was used to playing it with Eclipsos, who would effectively eliminate half the table for me. She would just come out of TO camo on turn 3 and flip a console, but I don't have that anymore. So I have to think a little bit more about making proactive plays on turn 2 instead of turn 3, and that's just more of a reshuffling of how things are going to go for me, rather than reinventing the wheel or anything like that, which is where I'm at with Unmasking, where I'm just really not sure how to play it, and kind of finding my path the way there, while also being frustrated because the mission is poorly written. Corvus Belli, if you watch any of my content, which I'm sure you don't, put exclusion zones in just every mission. Every mission should have an exclusion zone. Like when you and your opponent cannot infiltrate onto consoles and just take them right away, the game is so much more interesting and so much more competitive. Like exclusion zones, I think should be in every single mission in the packet. You should just have an 8-inch exclusion zone right in the middle. Get out of here. Makes it so that infiltrate is still very useful. Obviously, you can infiltrate past the line, past the exclusion zone if you want to, or you can just get a little bit of a boost on like where you're deploying yourself and all those kind of things, which is good for like gunfighter models and all that kind of stuff. But the fact that in a lot of missions, if you do not have infiltrating specialists, you almost cannot play in them, is a major problem with the game. Most factions do have access to that, but not all do. And so I think that would be a good way to level the playing field a little bit and make the game a little more interesting. So that's my 2 cents on that. Try to get all that salt out of my system. But thanks very much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.